Welcome to this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Liz.
And we're going to talk about season 12, episode 17, The British Invasion.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Shag. Cunt. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other British words. Well, the British, that's what the British invasion is. So, I mean, not necessarily just Austin Powers, but all the...
Sure.
The Rolling Stones and the Beatles coming over here with their filthy rock and roll.
Yes. Dirty. So dirty. Oh, man.
Ew. Yeah, actually they were. They probably need a shower. I bet you the Beatles smelled. Ew. I bet for a long time the Beatles fucking smelled like shit. I'm throwing that out there. That's
your new theory?
That's my new theory. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, Mr. McCartney. Come on here and let me... I'm sure you smell fine now. I'm sure he smells like an amazing vegan, expensive, yeah. Like after like the 20,000 hands that massage his the soap that's made out of things from his backyard that he made.
Sure, yeah. For sure.
I'm sure he smells delightful now, but back then, Liverpool bandmates touring around. I don't fancy that.
No, probably not. Probably not. On that note, what have you been up to?
Well, I was playing tour guide in my town to a guest I had from Dallas.
What?
We finally got to hang out together, and I took Diana through my small, humble town of Boerne, Texas, which is very much a hill country town. And I was talking to... I don't know who I was saying this to. I was saying it to my new pet sitter, who maybe we'll get her to listen to the podcast. So she walked in, she was like, "Oh, Supernatural," and I was like, "I have a podcast." And she was like, "Look at my charm tattoo." I'm like, "You're one of us." I know. Yeah. But I was telling her, because she's lived here, she grew up in this town. Like, oh yeah, I forget how small of a town this is until when I met her, I was wearing a hoodie, so I was covered. But so she didn't know, she couldn't see my tattoos. But I was like, I forget how small of a town it is until I walk around with someone else who was tattooed with me and gauge those reactions from the other people and go, oh yeah, this is a town where that is still unusual to see. And because it's most places, it's no big deal now at all anymore. But occasionally you go into a small town and where... It's just that, I don't know. It's not that it's just things haven't changed as much as they have other places.
And to be fair, I'm heavily tattooed, and then that paired with another tattooed person, people usually have a little bit... There is more of a potential for reaction, even in the city sometimes. But yeah,
fair. Once you put us together, then we just kind of amplify it.
Yeah, it amplifies. It's exponential.
And it's not like the two of us walking around don't look strange enough as it is.
Yeah, that was fun. We got to, and I'm obsessed with Betty at the Silver Queen. So that's my new thing.
Yeah, Betty at the Silver Queen is not going to listen to our podcast. No, Betty does not know what a podcast is. But she will never know. She will die.
She has a lovely collection.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A lovely collection of things that I was like, this story, maybe she was telling us about, what was it? What was the stone? Laramite?
Yes. I don't know if that was fully
accurate. Is that the name of it?
Yes.
Yeah, but the story the story she was telling, it was like, this seems like it's going into a problematic story of maybe we stop now. I don't want to know where you got the stone and why you can't get any more of it.
Yeah. Well,
and what happens to people who have it. Unless it's cursed.
She was talking about how it made people better. I don't know. It had health benefits.
It did have health benefits, but also, once you take something from the earth and nobody can get it, no more of it, I'm like, ooh, that's not good. But
yeah.
She was still fun. And she bought it. What was really funny, I think, was that, I think we had to tell those stories. Diana and I went to another store that was having a closeout sale.
Yeah, moving sale. Yeah.
And they had bargains, and we were just let's buy some crap for $1.
Yeah.
Diana found this really great disco ball that spun around. It was only $5. And Silver Betty bought it off of her for $10.
Because she could not find the time to walk across the street to get it for herself.
And Diana made $5. So I think, the day was a win.
I mean, I was happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a fun adventure. It was so pretty there. It was a pretty
Well,
day, and we both got really good bunnies.
we did. We got we got some fun
Easter
flocked
decoration, not
rabbits.
Easter, spring decor,
Spring, Ostera,
springtime decor.
whatever things.
So
Just for it's like I was like, I don't need more fertility. I guess fertility of ideas, fertility of stuff
maybe a lot of
is
other
good.
things. Yes.
But I found like a bunny that I've seen on I feel like I got a bargain bunny,
Yeah.
and we went to, I don't know, I'm gonna talk about, we went to a store that was like going back in time, and they overwrapped, they put everything in a bag with like 40 pounds of tissue paper,
It did.
and I really appreciate it. But then I go home with like, what the fuck do I do with 40 pounds of tissue? It all went in the recycling bin at least, so like, so here we go. But yeah, so beyond touring small hill country towns, what have you
Yeah.
been up to?
I've been busy. I also toured Arizona. Um, so I did a family trip to the Grand Canyon. Well, Sedona, where I learned about the vortexes and I got a vortex candle. And then I went to the
But
Grand
did you go
Canyon.
in a vortex?
I did not. Apparently the vortex thing is more about like a spiritual moment. I don't know. It was not what I anticipated, but
You have to make your own vortex.
I think you make it. I think you experience it was what I was getting.
That sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me.
So
Like,
I'm
I
not
want to
saying
go
it
in
is
the
or
vortex.
isn't, but I
Like, show
was
me,
not like
like, if I burn, you brought me a candle. If I burn
did.
that, there better be a vortex that opens up here.
Well, we had a Kong dog toy go missing in our house, and we are very hopeful that when we light the vortex candle, that the Kong will reappear.
Yeah,
It's just gonna pop out of the ceiling. Boop. But
that is how
we'll
that
see.
works.
Right? That's a hope. I don't know. I saw the Grand Canyon, and yes, I can make all the jokes about how grand it was, but it was definitely a very impactful experience. And then drove up through a bunch of like really pretty desert scape, I guess, to Page, where I saw the sights in Page, Arizona, including the Horseshoe Bend, and we walked through Antelope Canyon, which is a
Did
slot
you see any
canyon.
antelopes?
Did not. You don't see them there really now, apparently, because of the dam.
Lame.
I know. So
Damn.
I know. And there's a pretty lake. And then we went to had a very lovely dinner in Phoenix and came home. But it was a lot of driving and a lot of ground covered and a lot of cool stuff seen and tiring trip.
Yeah. You have vacationed. Like, that is like very sightseed.
It was not a relaxing vacation. It was cool. I saw a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't call it like vacay. And then, and then before I got to come see you, I spent a day at Luck Reunion and saw a bunch of music. And so, yeah, and then I got to hang out with you. Yay.
Very cool. So speaking of vacations, I am working towards, fingers crossed, taking one.
Yay.
And I will believe that the vacation happens when I touch sand. I think when I touch sand, I'll believe that I'm on vacation. But
yeah.
So we have decided what we're going to do is we're going to skip a regular episode next week, but we will drop a more lore. So we'll get a bonus episode will come out next week. It just won't be episode 18, which would be our normal slot. And I think everyone can manage, and you will enjoy it after you hear tonight's episode. I think you will be hungry for more lore. And so I think that will be good. On that note, there is I guess we could, do you want to do the sad news?
Do the sad news first. Yeah.
Okay.
There's one other small update that nothing.
Okay. Well, you can say the sad news.
Yeah. Carrie Ann Fleming has passed away. She did have cancer, and Jim Beaver, who played her, well, she was his wife on the show, was one of the people to announce that news. So that came out. So best wishes to her family and our condolences, and to her family, both biological and
yeah, she was a joy to watch on the show. She was made a good zombie. Is that a thing? So yeah. And see, there's something else.
They've announced that Vault Rising has wrapped filming.
Sure. And I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. When Vought rises on my TV. It's just like when I see sand, I don't even have to touch the sand, but when I see Vought rising, yeah, I understand there are a lot of issues and a lot of things. So yeah. All right, so let's talk about this episode, British Invasion. So season 12, episode 17, first aired April 6, 2017. And so we got a lot of 17s happening. And it was directed by John F. Showalter, who this season we last saw direct American Nightmare. And last season he did Our Little World, which was episode 6. This was written by the partner pair of Eugenie Ross Lemming and Brad Buckner. And this season they already did episode 2, Mamma Mia, episode 8, Lotus, and episode 13, Family Feud. So they've been around for this season. And you can see it in this What the Fuck episode. So we start off with our recap. And our recap is pretty simple this time. We got Lucifer's Vessel, Dagon, and Kelly. Eileen. Come on, Eileen. That's the only time we'll make that joke. Mick going to Hogwarts, the Douchebusters, and Mick getting a second chance. Yes. And then we're going to go, oh my goodness. So we're going to Hogwarts. We're going outside of London, England in 1987 to what I am now calling Kendrick's Academy, because that is how I wrote it in my notes. But I also have some notes from the wiki that says the Latin inscription for Kendrick's Academy seal reads Vis Unita Fortior, which roughly translates to United Strength is Stronger. I don't know. That makes a lot of sense. So, and the coat of arms includes an Aquarian star, a rampant lion, and 2 cross keys. And those cross keys represent the keys of heaven, which is interesting. But that is where we're starting. We're starting with 2 boys who also look like they're going to Hogwarts.
They do. The robes definitely seal that. And they're talking about one of them's going home for Christmas, and the other one clearly doesn't have anywhere to go home for Christmas. So it feels very Harry Potter again. But either way, the headmistress,
who feels very Delores Umbridge.
Yes. Mistress Hess, or
Dr. Hess.
Dr. Hess, excuse me. Headmistress is what I was
She could be, yeah.
So the Dr. Hess calls them to her office, and she's got a cool skull. And then we realize that she's got like Dexter plastic on the floor.
What is happening? These are children. What is happening? So we find out that Timothy and Michael are being tested for their next level of training. And they need people who will follow orders without question, and then tells them that only one of you will be leaving this room, and on the table is a dagger. What the fuck?
It's so what the fuck. It's so what the fuck. Like I could not have like, I don't even know how to like,
yeah, like, so she goes, yeah,
how what the fuck it is.
Yeah, and she goes out in the hall, and then one of them comes out, and then we're all like, we're watching this, and we're like, okay, so Michael, this must be Nick, yeah, and we're like,
because she calls him Mr. Davies, so now we know it is,
and he's covered in like blood and shit, and we're just like, did you just kill that kid?
Your friend? You just killed your friend, your little boyfriend,
and this is what the bit of letters are making them do. Like, yes. What the fuck is wrong with these people?
It's so wild.
It's so insane.
He's like, and he also even says that he fought well. He wanted to live. What?
It's so weird. It's so weird.
Super weird. Yeah. And then Mick wakes up at his briefing table next to a bottle of whiskey.
Probably, I understand. Like yeah, I get it, man. So we go from that into Baby, where Sam is FaceTiming Eileen.
Oh, and they're talking about Kelly Klein, and so they message a picture of a house, but. I do appreciate that Dean looks over and sees a picture of Dagon and refers to her as a Pat Benatar type.
Yes.
But Eileen wants to figure out why this place got torched, why they left it, and where they've gone now. And so she's basically helping them track Kelly and Dagon. That's the summary here. She's got a system where she's tracking where they're at.
Yeah. And then, she says, bye, Sam. And it's all cute. And so we go from there back to the bunker. And so we figure out that every hunter is working on this. And that's why they had Eileen in the game. But
yes,
they still don't know where Cass is.
nope.
Sam suggests Crowley.
Dean's like, oh no. But Mick's there in the bunker waiting for them because apparently he didn't break in. All men of letters can get into all men of letters places that he shares that.
Because their weird ass key opens the door to every chapter house. It's a very frat thing. So Mick is there though, because he has urgent news about a Nephilim, which they knew about.
Yeah. They're like, okay, because they have their cosmic shockwave. And they're like, yeah, it's a long story. And so he wants to hear it. And Dean's like, well, Lucifer jacked the president and then knocked up his girlfriend. Huh. And Sam's like, now she's on the run with Dagon, the prince of hell. And so Dean's pouring everybody drinks, as you should at this point in the conversation. But Mick's pissed that he wasn't in the loop on all of this. And they have to basically be like, well, we kind of like lost her. And we lost Kelly. And they're like, wait, why you'd let her live? And Dean's like, well, it's not her fault. You know, she didn't like know that it was Lucifer or whatever. And Sam's like, yeah, and she agreed to end her pregnancy, but she changed her mind. And Mick's like, you should have shot her between the eyes immediately. And they're like, oh yeah, that's what you would have done. And he's like, the code demands it.
Yeah, the code demands her to die. And this is, once again, we're getting this code shit coming up. And Sam insists, though, that they are handling it. And Dean just thinks that they should drink. And we cut to the asylum where someone is being naughty.
Yeah. Lucifer is able to psychically reach out to Dagon. And he wants to check on his son and its container, as he refers to Kelly. And they verify that Kelly should last as long as needed. So, and then Lucifer makes a comment that tells Dagon not to fail him again. So that's an interesting.
Yeah, so we're like, oh, okay, something, but we know, like, there, but at least we know, sorry, I'm stumbling there, but at least we know that Lucifer can communicate with Dagon from where he's at. So that's kind of a new thing that we're learning.
Yes.
And so now from there, we're going to go back to Mick, who is back to dreaming about the day with his poor friend.
Yeah, which is awful, where he's, when before he killed his friend's like, we could run, my dad would help us, whatever, but Mick's like, orders, and stabs his friend.
And his phone has rung, and it's Umbridge, and she wants to know why he didn't report in last night. And apparently, I was drunk was not a reason. I mean, I think British men of letters would accept that as a reason. It seems like something that probably happens often. But he does say that he's making some progress with the Winchesters.
And she's like, no, they're hopeless, and leadership thought getting them on board with us was key, but no. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, nope, things change with the Nephilim. This is, we need America settled now. There's no more time courting these, quote, mangy colonials. This bitch. And they must obey, or we will turn them over to Mr. Ketch and start fresh. It's not a discussion, it's an order. Assimilate or eliminate. And then I just started imagining the Borg.
The what?
The Borg.
Oh.
I went Star Trek.
Okay. I mean, I just kept looking at the ass and assimilate. Yeah, so assimilate or eliminate should also be on bumper stickers. Anyhow, so that sounds, it's never. So it's so we go back to Kelly, and she is on a couch but uncomfortable because she's starting to get some weird pains going on here. She's like, something's weird. And Dagon's just like, no, it's all fine. It's all fine. No, you don't need to go to a doctor. You barely understand what's happening in your own body. This is a baby, and you don't know what's happening. No. And Kelly, and she's also, Dagon wants them to, it's time for them to go to another place, right? It's time to keep moving. And Kelly's is like, we're not going anywhere until I get to a fucking doctor, and I want to know my baby's safe.
Yeah. So we cut from there to Dean passed out or laying his head down, passed out on the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. Sam comes in to get coffee. They are both hung the fuck over and talking about how well Mick can drink. And then
look at his life. Like, he probably started drinking the moment like he stabbed his friend. He's probably been drinking since what? I am terrible at judging ages. What was that? Was that like a 10-year-old?
Probably.
Like, I was a 10, 12. Like, I'm not sure what that fucking kid was. So somewhere in there. So he probably started drinking when he was 10.
Yeah.
And Mick, though, overhears them asking if Dean's heard from. Sam asking Dean if he's heard from Mary, and says that she's working with Ketch and they might make quite the team. And Dean's like, would you want your mom working with Ketch? Ew.
And that's when Mick's like, I don't know. I didn't know my mom, and I didn't really know my dad either. I was on the streets until the men of letters found me.
On the streets. I was just a little street urchin.
I'm like, are we turning to
Please,
Oliver
sir,
now?
can I have some more?
So we got Harry Potter, Star Trek, and now we got some Oliver in here too.
We got some Oliver in here. So the British men of letters found him when he picked a member's pocket, and he got a cursed coin in there. But they liked his moxie, so they signed him up. Do you look like you'll stab a friend? Come on, come be with us. Yeah. And so we go from there back to finally a clinic. So Kelly's going to get her baby looked at.
I would like to point out that he also made himself a Bloody Mary while they were doing this.
It looks like a good Bloody Mary. But he couldn't find any vodka, so he just made himself some tomato juice.
But he was asking for the vodka, but yes. So they get to the clinic where Kelly, they ask Dagon if she's a partner, and she's like, no. But they do it follow up with birth coach, and Dagon's like, we'll go with that. And it was actually kind of funny. But she's like, oh, the doctor's like, oh, the vitals are great. Let's do this sonogram. And Dagon is not stoked about a sonogram happening. And as the doctor zooms in, he is getting quite concerned at what he is seeing on the screen. But Dagon does her yellow eyes. She does some yee shit and controls what he says to say everything's A-okay.
Right. At one point during the sonogram, the kid's face does go to a skull.
Yeah, it's not supposed to do that.
That's not supposed to do that. So yeah, Dagon mind meld, everything is fine. And then the doc asks about the father. That's just awkward.
Well, they say it's from medical records, but yeah. So, and then we cut back to Crowley's asylum headquarters. And he is petting Lucifer on the head, calling him a good puppy, and just really being condescending. And it's, as we all know, this is not a great plan, Crowley.
He's just taunting again, and I just don't. I know what's going on. But so Lucifer licks the floor and says he would rather be in the cage there than in the cage with his insane brother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
he tells Crowley that Crowley wins.
I don't know if I believe this. Yeah. So we go from there to the Connex bunker, and that's where we learned that the Skells were shapeshifters and they killed 8. That would be Mary and Ketch. So the Skells.
So, but Mick has to file the report. Typey, as Ketch says, because Ketch doesn't do paperwork, I guess. And Mary's like asking Ketch if him and Mick are friends, and Ketch is like, well, I mean, we went to school together. And Mary's like, well, you know, do you major in murder and minor in mayhem? Ho ho ho.
Oh, yeah, it's not great. And Ketch pries into her giving up being a hunter and how it is that now she's up to her elbow in shifter guts and that she's just drawn to danger, Mrs. Winchester. And I don't like where this is going at all. And we go from there back to the Connex bunker where Mick is interrupted by a little shit.
Yeah. So he hears a noise and pulls a gun and points it up at Rennie Rollings, who works for Dr. Hess. She works directly. He's from the top of his class, and he has to let you know that as he introduces himself because he sucks.
Yes, because he is a little shit. And so we go from there back to the clinic, and we find that someone has come in looking for patient files with a knife.
Yeah. and slits the doctor's throat.
Uh-oh. Then back in the bunker, they're trying to reach Cass, and Cass wants him to make your voice a male.
Yeah. I was cracking up with that. But Dean has left multiple messages and needs Castiel's help with Dagon. Sam and Eileen have been talking, and he's asking her how she's got her intel, and they're just being so cute.
So cute. But we find out that she has traced all the license plates that went by the warehouse, which is smart. Mm-hmm. And one of them was registered to a Dermot Culp, who went missing a year ago. And then she figured out that she could track him down, and she tracked him down carrying a dead body because he was a demon.
Yes. And so she killed him. But first he got
she found out that he was working for Dagon and covering all her tracks. So she was like, as a way to make the Winchesters think she's even hotter, she's like, before he got stabbed in the heart, I got Kelly's phone number from him, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was like, that's an awkward conversation.
And that happened really fast, but good for you.
It did. But they are very impressed. So all right, now we go back to the asylum, and Crowley has his minions. He wants them to come, and he calls them all semi loyal, but he wants them to come hear what Lucifer has to say. And he says that the beast has been humbled, and he has tamed Lucifer. And Crowley demands that Lucifer is his dog, and calls him Marmaduke and tells him it's showtime. And Lucifer turns to the minions and says the words that Crowley wants him to say, but his facial expressions and his lack of specificity make it very clear that he's talking about himself being the ruler of hell and threatening them, and that he's still the boss, and he flashes his red eyes.
Yep. So we know that Lucifer is not really Crowley's bitch, as Crowley was, and this is not going to end well again. Crowley.
Damn it, Crowley.
I never learned.
Crowley and his pride.
And so we go to Kelly, where Kelly is on the phone with Dagon demanding supplements. And Sam calls her and fakes being from the doctor's office.
And says they need to see her today from some things they saw in her labs, and at 5 p.m. So she finally agrees after resisting at first. So Sam and Elliot meet at this port. That's what I call it. It's like an abandoned port.
Eileen?
What did I say? Eileen. What did I say?
I was like, who the fuck is this? I was like, did I miss a guy? But yeah, so Sam and Eileen.
Sam and Eileen. I don't know where I was. I think that's why I wrote my notes are terrible. It's just as E. Sam and Eileen go to the port where Mick and Rennie meet them. Ew. And Mick implies that Rennie is his backup. If Dagon shows up, they'll need all the help they can get. Blah. Okay. So Sam introduces everybody, and Rennie calls Eileen the Banshee Girl because they have a file. Okay. And then he talks shit about all their lack of formal training, and then wants to share that he was in the top of his class, and Eileen cuts him off and says, no one cares. And
no one cares, work harder. So Mick has, though, brought the cult to the party, and he gives that to Sam.
So we've got Kelly trying to look a little bit incognito, walk to this clinic. Dean is there to grab her. Good Lord, I am mixing names now. Dean's there to intervene,
kidnap her and put her in baby, and they take her to the port, which is what we're calling her now.
I don't know, industrial. It's an outdoor.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, warehouse lot ? Question mark. I don't know what the fuck this place is.
There's water nearby. That's why I thought it was.
Yeah. So the lot outside where they were filming, they try and talk to her once, but she loves her baby, and by trying to talk to her, trying to convince her that this is evil spawn of Satan child. And Nick tries to tell her that she's going to mean nothing to this baby, and it's just going to kill us all. And little shit Rennie makes a move like he's grabbing a gun, right? And Dean stops him. But then the wind, it just whips up, and here comes Dagon, and she just flings everyone.
Flings them all. And so we've got Dean and Mick unloading into Dagon, but it does nothing to her. And Dagon is able to get to Kelly. And as they are starting to walk away, Eileen gets the Colt off the ground, aims at Dagon, and then right as she pulls the trigger, Dagon magically disappears, poofs out with Kelly, and the bullet hits Rennie.
Oops.
Oops.
So
and she's
Mick overreacts and pulls a gun out and says that because she killed a man of letters, she has to die. It's the code.
Yeah, and Sam's like, it was an accident. And Dean's like, no, you don't have to do this. And Eileen's like, please don't do this. And Mick flashes back to his little friend that he murdered, saying, please don't. It's very
dumb. Yep. And Sam talks to him and he puts Dean's gun down and he tells Mick, that he only has to answer to his own code, right? To do what's right. And speaking of codes, we're going to talk about some codes again because it's lore. Woo! So we have started talking about what some people say the British Men of Letters is based on, which is the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And this week we're going to talk about a special time and a special person who interacted with the Golden Dawn. And through this special person, we'll learn about their neophyte rituals. We'll learn about that one later in more lore. But we're going to learn about a very special con lady. And we're going to learn about a woman whose name is amazing. Her name is Anne Dis-Debar. All right, so we're going to start back in London, 1900. And the London's Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn's Isis Urania Temple was being run by the actress Florence Farr. And there was drama, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. And Florence wrote to MacGregor Mathers, the Golden Dawn's top leader, who was in Paris, saying she wanted to quit. Mathers replied with an eyebrow-raising letter, suspecting that Florence wanted to join up with the former chief Westcott, who had left the order after it became known to some people that their coroner was in a secret society, and as Aleister Crowley put it, intimated to Dr. Westcott that he was paid to sit on corpses, not raise them. Mathers wrote that Westcott had never communicated with the secret chiefs of the order. All of the correspondence between Westcott and the chiefs was forged. In fact, all knowledge of the Golden Dawn had come only through Mathers, and he was the only one actually in communication with the secret chiefs. In fact, Sapiens Domina Bitor Astris, the Fraulein Anna Springle herself, was at that moment in Paris with Mathers and helping him out with his current project, the Isis movement. So we shift ourselves to Paris in 1900, where the alleged Fraulein Springle has arrived with her husband, Theo Horos, and a lady physician named Dr. Rose Adams. Springle has convinced Mathers with her in-depth knowledge of the Golden Dawn's workings, including their rituals and passwords of the higher grades. Mathers said, I have yet to learn where she got the knowledge of the grades up to 5 degrees out of 6 degrees from which she then had. She then presented the other two to me and vouched for them as their grades in America. They said they were from the American Thoth Hermes Temple, and Mathers took him to a meeting at the Thor Temple where a neophyte ceremony was held. They were elected honorary members of that temple. Also, Fraulein Springle told Mathers that she had absorbed the spirit of the late mystic Madame Helena Blavatsky, and that was why she was so fat. The woman was said to be quite large and tall, who looked about 60, but said she was 46. She was quite a statuesque woman, especially for the time and in Paris. So to further convince him, she told Mathers secret remarks he had shared with Blavatsky when they met. Mathers would go on to tell Butler Yeats that Mrs. Horos was the world's most powerful living medium. But shortly after this, the alleged Springle and her crew absconded to South Africa with stolen materials from the Golden Dawn, including the neophyte ritual they witnessed. Oops. Mathers would claim that evil spirits were controlling Springle for issues frequently a shell without honor, truth, or morality. I believe her and her accomplices to be emissaries of a very powerful secret occult order who has been trying for years to break up other orders and especially my work and the Golden Dawn. I may tell you that on more than one occasion, I conversed face to face with the real sapiens Dominabatura asterisk, Fraulein Springle, in this woman. But on another occasion, I detected a demoniac simulacrum of that transformation, as since I have detected also on one or two occasions. For the entity of Mrs. Horos has been like a battle between two orders. So, who was this thief and con woman, if not a member of a powerful secret occult order? Harry Houdini would write she was one of the most extraordinary fake mediums and mystery swindlers the world has ever met. This woman went by so many names, I frankly have a hard time determining what to call her. Some of them were Swami Viva Ananda, Marie Louise of the Commune, Editha Solomon, Editha Lola Montez, Angel Anna, and my favorite, Anne Dis DeBar. Editha was probably her given name, but for the sake of this piece, we're going to call her Anne. It is possible she was born Anne Odelia Salomon, but again, we're not quite sure because she was a very conny woman. One of her self-proclaimed origin stories is that she was born in Italy in 1854, the illegitimate daughter of King Ludwig of Bavaria and the dancer Lola Montez. Allegedly, then, she was placed with the cruel foster family as a baby, and the young Anne frequently ran away from home. She claimed to have started her first cult, the Koreshan Unity, in America at the age of 12. The Koreshan Unity Movement's newspaper, The Flaming Star, would call her a convicted spiritualist swindler and the slickest and most accomplished cook swindler ever known. So maybe they didn't quite claim her. The young Anne started swindling across the country, faking illness whenever caught in a predicament. She would suck blood from an abscessed tooth and use that to fake tuberculosis. Once, when called out by a doctor who threatened to use a hot poker to look in her mouth, she ran through a priest who had come to do last rites, and then she knocked over a bunch of nuns. But she has successfully escaped from the hotel and her hotel bill.
Damn.
As a young woman, she could be found in Baltimore, where she posed as Countess Landsfeld and Baroness Rosenthal from Bavaria. She used love traps to swindle men, often running a con that bankers in Bavaria had failed to transfer a large sum of money, and that she was therefore forced with great reluctance to accept temporary financial assistance from a wealthy admirer. And then when she had extracted as much money as she safely could from the suitor, she would promptly discard.
She's like the original of that, what is her name? The Anna that in New York a couple of years ago that just got out of prison. It's a Netflix thing, but
I know. And Finding Anna, I think, was the name of it. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, she could have been if Anna went this far. So she started smoking cigarettes laced with opium and ended up in Bellevue Hospital, where she stabbed an attendant, tried to stab her doctor, and wounded several others, including a medical student named Paul Noel Masson, before they were able to secure her. She was committed to the asylum for the insane on Ward's Island in New York for a year. But during that time, she showed no signs of insanity. So since authorities were required to release her when she was declared sane, she was subsequently discharged. She then married the now Dr. Masson, the guy she stabbed. She marries him in 1871.
Okay, she's a bad bitch. All right.
Yeah, right. She stabs him and then she marries him. That's something. They have a daughter named Alice. We don't know what happens to her, but their marriage did not last as he died within a year, maybe under suspicious circumstances. Oh. So from that, Anne ventured into the world of hypnotism and soon had a new man. She married the talented artist General Joseph Dis DeBar in 1879 and became Anne Odelia Dis DeBar. It just sounds like a rapper's name, or
I just keep thinking of Belle Biv DeVoe.
Yeah, something. And Dis DeBar. So Anne used her husband to work her way into society, where she dazzled the rich with her psychic abilities. So to stand out from the crowd, as spiritualist mediums were a dime a dozen then, she specialized in spirit paintings. Anne claimed that among the many great masters she channeled onto the canvas, she had specifically summoned the spirit of Alexander the Great's court painter for several of her works. It's a very specific person to go. I mean, I think back then they were more into classics than we are now, so it may make more sense. And she was like, this is who I got. So the process went something like this. A small plain white piece of cardboard would be handed to a person to examine and mark. Then they would be instructed to place it on their head so that the edge of the marked card faced forward. And then after some squirming and some other contortions, Anne would tell them to look at the unmarked side of the card where, voila, a masterful painting had appeared. And the pictures varied in size. Some were as big as 50 by 72 inches, and some were meant to be handheld. It's pretty big.
That's really big.
But they also said that the paint would be wet and could take a few days to dry. So that made me wonder if that got on the person's hair, if it was turned upside down. Like, would that just, I don't know. So how not all the pictures were created using the same process, as General Distabar clearly could not meet the demand for all these paintings, particularly for the larger images. He resorted to using pre-existing paintings, and it was alleged that 39 of these productions were stolen from a picture dealer. And spirit painting technique likely involved using canvases treated with photo development chemicals, which could then be dampened with the wet sponge to appear. Yeah. We're like, I mean, yeah, you're cheating people, but cool. There are mentioned, like, I also read that she would have like really big skirts, and so she could pull out the second painting from it and then like put that into the first one. So that's like you get your fashion, and your fashion like is crime.
Yeah. I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive.
It's impressive. So there are mentions of Anne having children with Distabara, but also like nothing about what happened to them. They did get divorced about 5 years after their marriage. In June of 1888, she was sentenced to Blackwell's Island for 6 months for tricking an elderly lawyer, Mr. March, into giving her his townhouse, which she turned into a temple of truth, with her as a high priestess, naturally. Those familiar with the house when Mr. and Mrs. Marsh entertained guests were somewhat taken aback to see Anna arrayed in the lawyer's wife former gowns and jewels, reclining on its silk-covered sofa. The press would call her the portly swindler. Magicians offended by her tricks quickly showed how simple it was to create spirit paintings, and it became kind of a fad to like show how everyone like to like catch the spiritualists and show how they were doing it. But although maybe she wasn't as bad as all that, while awaiting her sentence in custody, she behaved as an exemplary prisoner and was routinely giving money to all the people that she met who were in the prison with her. All the poor people, she was just like, "Here's money." So, I mean, granted, I mean, it was money that she stole, but you know, whatever. Right. So, yeah. So in New Orleans, I don't know where the city somewhere in the South is. So in New Orleans, she next married the man who accompanied her to Paris as Theodore Horos, whose real name was Frank Jackson Dutton. Frank was probably around 32 when they got married, and Anne was around 50. On the marriage certificate, she presented herself as Princess Edith Lolita, Baroness Rosenthal, Countess of Landsfeld of Florence, Italy. And together they would run the Order of the Crystal Sea, a cult said to be based around fortune telling, but in reality, the couple were blackmailing the participants. Oops. In 1899, the deputy sheriff tried to get them to leave town, and Anne threw a fit. So the next day, both she and Frank were arrested. One newspaper calling them the fat fake and the little man. Charged with being a dangerous and suspicious character, which was apparently a law, they were given the choice of leaving the parish within 48 hours or 30 days in jail. Not with Dale. You're not going to spend 30 tails. You were sentenced to 30 tails. Right. So they were going to leave town, but they didn't. And soon Anne was arrested for fortune telling. Anne showed up to court in a flowing gown, which was said to make her look like a priestess. And they were again given the option to pay $25 or serve 30 days. And this time, because it was money, they took the time in jail. They briefly moved to a DC suburb where they met a widowed physician named Dr. Rose Adams, who she was informed that Theo, Frank was now going by Theo, was a newly reincarnated Jesus Christ. And the Swami...
That's extreme.
Extreme. And the Swami Laura Horos was the mother of God. Theo was also a mother god who one day would dematerialize and reappear as a beautiful woman. Fascinating. So the new religion was called Theocratic Unity, because his name is Theo. So right. Theocratic Unity and Purity League. Dr. Rose gave them all her money and became their faithful servant. The trio went to England and then onward to Paris, where we began our story. So, for the conclusion of Anne d'Estabar's story, including the trial where the Golden Dawn's neophyte ritual is leaked, tune into more lore, and we'll finish up our story there. But so that is the story of Anne d'Estabar, and a little more insight into the Order of the Golden Dawn and just the shenanigans that were happening around then, which are just fun. And I frankly also like a con artist. Yep, it gets even wilder. Get this. Tune into lore, guys. This story gets even crazier. It gets wild and crazy.
Wild and crazy.
All right. So back with our heroes and our not so hero Mick.
Ugh. Finally, they talk him into lowering his gun, and he tells them to go. And he seems conflicted, but Sam, Dean, and Eileen do not argue and drive away quickly. So. And now another WTF scene. I know, you're already sighing about it.
Yeah. So we're going to a hotel.
The summary is
God damn it, Mary.
Mary and Ketch banged.
God damn it, Mary. What were you thinking? I don't.
And
Ketch's pillow talk is that he thought he was going to end up shooting her. And Mary is just like, we got to be clear. Look, this is not mean shit. This does not mean anything. And Ketch is like, yeah, of course. But like he's like inside, like wanted it to mean something. But
also he's laying in bed naked still with like a blanket over his crotch, and she's like almost fully dressed and about to get the fuck out.
Read the room. I just think that's symbolic. That's a sign, right? And it's just I love the artfully placed pillow there, but he's just like I'm not built for that. And he suspects that she isn't either, but she's actually tells him that he's wrong, but that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, you finally took my advice, choosing between work and family. And she's like, no, it's not an either or. I had the same conversation with my children. And he's like, oh, you want to have it all? And she's like, I'm trying to.
But that's right, Mary. You can try and have it all. And we go to the asylum where Lucifer is working with a minion who is fixing his vessel.
Yes. And basically he's like, look, everything on your insides he's looking at it with x-ray vision, and he's like, you look fine. And Lucifer's like, trust me, I'm going to be the last one standing. He's like, the minion's like, your vessel's sound, the repairs are secure, but the things that make you Crowley's personal sock puppet, fuck
puppet. That also works. So his sock puppet security system is intact. And apparently there was another minion that designed it, and Crowley decided to kill him to safeguard that system, which makes sense. That's what you do. So, but Lucifer is just like, well, minion for me, you can crack this, right?
Yes, you must.
Because I'm about to be a dad.
Got to. Pressure's on. So
the minion leaves, and we go to the bunker.
Mm-hmm. And Eileen is there with Sam and Dean, and she's just so distraught that she accidentally killed Rennie. And because she really, even though Rennie sucks,
she's a good person, and she's upset that she killed a human being and not a monster, even if he was a little shit. And frankly, I mean, you're just saving the world from. We don't need more of that little shit. We're fine.
Well, Sam is very sweet and he hugs her. It's cute.
He wraps her up in his giant arms. I don't know, there's a hug. Like, there's just some engulfing there. And she's just like, oh, I'm just going to be here and small, be all tiny in your little arms. It's so cute. And so you go from there to Kelly, and Dagon has her handcuffed to a bed now.
And she's upset, but Dagon's like, you can't be trusted. I'm just protecting the baby. And by the way, she's like, Dagon's like, by the way, their baby's strong and it's going to be fine, but you won't, because all those weird pains, that's a taste of what's to come. You're birthing a Nephilim, and that's fatal always.
What? So now we know, like here is this news, Kelly, you got to die. Yeah. Right. So now we know that's going to happen. What the fuck? And so we go to Connex bunker, where Mick comes to find out why Ketch has called him in, but it's not Ketch that called him. Ketch is a dirty little liar because Umbridge is there.
Yeah, Dr. Hess is there with Mick and Ketch, and they're like, he's like, he knows it's a big deal because apparently she doesn't usually leave London. Ugh.
Oh God. And she's there to fix this situation. And she just thinks these hunters are out of control. And she's totally Lady Bevel's bitch. She thinks that the brothers Winchester, or I love that they call them the brothers Winchester, and I do appreciate that. But she thinks that they need to be put down. And then she goes into this thing where she calls hunters dogs and that they should obey orders. And I don't want to think about dogs that way either, bitch. So, but then she's just like, they don't obey you. And they are going to find Eileen and kill her in accordance with the code. What is wrong with you?
And they're going to arrest the Winchesters, and they'll be investigated. If they're found guilty, they'll be executed too. And Mick's like, well, aren't hunters always found guilty? And then Hess is like, be careful. Blah. He's like, no. He's like, I've never broken a rule. Lady Bevel failed to report all the lives that have been saved by Sam and Dean and the lives that are made better. That has nothing to do with the code. It's the code. They just have a good sense of what's right. And she's like, the code's not a suggestion. It's absolute. Blah.
And yeah, and so this is one of the main problems with British men of letters is the code is absolute and nothing is absolute. So, but the code is absolute and it's what separates us from the monsters. And that is a very specific men of letters thing. And this is when it finally Mick has this realization. It's like, bitch, you made me kill my best friend. What the fuck is this code? I'm going to do the right thing. And just when he does that, Ketch fucking kills him.
Ketch shoots him in the back of the head.
In the back of the head, like a little bitch.
What the fuck? This is a what the fuck episode.
Yeah, this episode should have just been called What the Fuck.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mick kind of had a moral epiphany and gets fucking killed because the British men of letters are terrible. Anyways.
So we go to the bunker. Cass still MIA, and they're really starting to get worried.
Eileen left. Boo.
She went back to Ireland. And is that a safe choice? Does that put you closer to Britain, where I feel like the British men of letters are more powerful, but maybe she has more things in Ireland to kind of hide with? I don't know. So Sam, though, has handed Dean the cult.
Yes. And Dean's comment is, welcome back, sweetheart.
And so then we go back to our Connex British men of letters, where Ketch is looking at the dead Mick and the pooling of the blood.
Mm-hmm. And Hess tells him that their experiment to recruit American hunters has failed. And so Ketch asks her what to do. And Hess instructs him, exterminate every last one. And she throws down Dean's file on the table. So exterminate all American hunters is what Ketch has been instructed to do. That's crazy.
So, and how many hunters are, I don't know, this is just nuts.
That's a lot. That's actually a whole lot of people.
Yeah. I don't know, we don't have a hunter count. I don't know if we do, but we'll see. We'll do some hunter math later. But so let's find out about some minions.
Sure. So we've got first I'm going to start with Dr. Hess because that's where we were at. And so it was played by Jillian Barber. She's been in episodes of Street Justice, The Commish, X-Files a few times, Smallville, 4400, Witches of East End a few times, Bates Motel, The Man in the High Castle a half a dozen times, Aid a couple times, and Last of Us a couple of times. She was Mrs. Thomas in the 1995 version of Jumanji, Judy in Disturbing Behavior, Rebecca in Double Jeopardy, Doctor in The Sixth Day, a riot singer in Hot Rod, cruise ship lady in 2012, and Deidre in the series Chesapeake Shores, quite a few episodes. So our young Mick child actor was played by Spencer Drever. He's been in episodes of Signed, Sealed, Delivered, a few episodes of Fargo. He was in The Whispers and Maid. Our doctor, Dr. Turner, was played by Michael Manier. Been in episodes of Van Helsing, Travelers, Frequency, Zoo, iZombie a few times, Charmed, Big Sky a few times, Resident Alien, Yellow Jackets, and Blockbuster. He was an auctioneer in 50 Shades Darker. our Lucifer's demon, aka our minion, was played by Alex Barima. He was in episodes of Once Upon a Time a few times, Almost Human, The Flash, iZombie, Travelers, Man in the High Castle, Schmigadoon, Tracker, and Blue Skies. He was also Jonathan in Riverdale, about a dozen episodes, and David in Resident Alien, which is a reoccurring regular character as well. And Dermot, our other demon, was played by Eric Mazimpaka. He's done a lot of stunt work, specifically in Wayward Pines and The Last of Us, but he's also acted in both of those, as well as Arrow, Man in the High Castle, Resident Alien, and Yellow Jackets.
Very cool.
Yeah. Good casting.
Yeah. No. So, like, what the fuck is this episode?
What the fuck is the words of the episode? Yeah, I'm really bummed because I feel like they did really good. This was like a really good character development episode for Mick. And lose him kind of blows. I love bringing back Eileen, and that's
until you put a hit out on her, and then you put a hit out on everybody, and just don't trust these B-malls.
No, don't trust the
B-mall. Don't trust a BMOL.
I agreed.
Yeah, that's what you learn.
Can't fucking trust the British. I'm kidding.
That's what happens with the British invade.
I know. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Before we get in trouble with something, I think we need to stop talking about the British invasion. All right. Cheers, jerk.
Cheers, bitch.
The thing we say over and over again, and it's just fuck, 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 fuck.
Like that. On this week's episode of Devil's Trap Podcast, somehow we combine Harry Potter, Star Trek, and Oliver?
WTF. Let's do this.
Get.
Welcome to More Lore, where we talk about more lore. So in this week's episode, we are going to be concluding the story of Anna Distabar and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, how they intersected, and talk about some of her crazy trials and what this con woman did. Just some trigger warning when we get to the trials. There's going to be some talk of sexual assault, so just know that's coming. But other than that, let's jump into this. So after our trio was in Paris, they ran away to South Africa. So Anne, Frank Theo, and Dr. Rose went to Cape Town and set up a, quote, occult science establishment. In one of the newspapers, it said, the Swami Viva Ananda, who also, it seems, was sometimes called Madame Helena, assisted by a qualified lady doctor, Mary Adams, and a Mr. Theodore Horos, gave advice and treatment to those searching for the truth and seeking occult knowledge and spiritual healing. From 10 in the morning till 8 in the evening, the rooms were open for scientific palmistry, advice on all private matters, spirit writings, massage, and magnetic movements.
Okay. It's a big
really curious what the magnetic movements were. So obviously it did not take long for the Cape Town police to issue warrants for their arrest. And so they soon returned to London. There they created the Order of Theocratic Unity, because his name was Theo now, based on the stolen Golden Dawn materials, complete with initiations. To help attract members, they placed advertisements in papers, not for students of occult science. Instead, their ad read, foreign gentleman, 35, educated, attractive, of independent means, desires to meet a lady of means with a view to matrimony. Girls, don't answer that ad. If someone says they're rich and they want another rich person, nobody's rich. Don't answer that. Did we learn nothing from Rowena? Okay, so one unfortunate woman who responded was Eveline Mary Maud Croysdale, who went by Vera.
Okay, I don't know where she got that nickname, but
I'm not sure. So Vera received a reply from Theo. He said he was traveling with his also rich mother, Swami Viva Ananda, and asked if Vera would like to stay with his mother for a few days. Vera said yes to this for some reason. Upon meeting, Anne greeted Vera with a kiss and introduced herself as Theo's mother, and then showed Vera a painting of herself reclining over a live tiger, which I'm sure wasn't awkward for anybody at all. Theo later arrived, and Vera thought everything was just fine. Theo later woos Vera into bed, where he said some things he told her were vows, informed her they were now Golden Dawn married, and then had sex with her. Some evenings, Anne would join them and lie beside them as they performed their marital rites. Vera then lent Theo her diamond earrings, a diamond pendant, and some other jewels, which he pawned. He also pawned a gold brooch of Vera's for 30 shillings and gave her 12 of those, which she used to take a cycle tour with some friends in the country. The Horos then intersected with another religious sect, the Army of the Lord, led by Mr. Wood of Brighton in 1901. Mr. Wood believed that Mrs. Horos was the Queen of Sheba, and the best diet was freshly mown grass supplemented with a mixture of chalk and water.
Ew.
His house, the Horos met Sister Miriam, aka Mrs. Adams. They would meet Mrs. Adams again and stay at her house in Birkenhead, where they traveled to lecture on vegetarian diets, although they were both drinking beer and eating beef, because beer was not vegetarian. The Horos would suggest to Mrs. Adams that her 16-year-old daughter, Daisy, and her 14-year-old brother should go with them back to London for educational purposes, including singing lessons at St. Paul's Cathedral. She agreed, and off they went with her children. Soon, Daisy believed that Theo was a son of God, and he soon assaulted her. After this, Daisy was initiated into theocratic unity via the neophyte ritual. The neophyte ritual used was taken directly from the Mathers Golden Dawn stolen material, a fact later confirmed in court. Then another woman whom the matrimonial advertisement had brought in, Laura Faulkner, brought Daisy to Anne's bedroom in which Theo was waiting. Laura testified that Daisy made loud cries of objection and told her that the Swami held her head during it. Anne was arrested later that day on a theft charge, which was dismissed for lack of evidence. One of the residents of their Gower Street house they were staying at wrote to the Adams children's father, urging them to get their kids the fuck out of that place. Still, Mrs. Adams was swayed by a letter from Daisy, who said she was sorry she had wronged Theo and would vow on her knees before God to remain true to him and the Swami even if she was tortured to death. On September 20th, 1901, the Horos were arrested and charged with conspiring to cheat, and defraud Vera Croysdale of both money and jewelry. Anne wore a large velvet hat and a kind of dust coat, beneath which she had a low-cut and loosely fitting garment resembling a surplice. She wore cream-colored gloves and carried a large scent bottle. You're just carrying a large perfume bottle with you? Is that just a thing people did? I mean, I guess Victorian England smelled. So Theo was dressed almost entirely in fawn-colored clothes, including a frock coat and a fawn bowler hat. Theo looked like a putz. On October 3rd, Anne requested a trial by jury. On October 10th, further charges were brought for them for the alleged procurement for immoral purposes of 3 young women, Vera Croysdale, Olga Royson, and Daisy Adams. Theo Horos was also charged with the rape of Daisy. As the trial got spicy, it was decided to bar all women from the court. On November 8th, the court was filled to the brim with people sitting, they were so filled they were on the steps of the witness box. Anna would arrive in court wearing a light blue robe with bishop's sleeves of baggy white lawn, and in addition, a black hooded cape with fringed black bands. And then she would announce that she was going to conduct her own defense. But she did have to be reminded that she could not defend Theo/Frank. So, during the trial, the picture of Anne riding a tiger was introduced as evidence. I just want to make that fact known because I think that's fantastic. So, the trial greatly embarrassed the Golden Dawn, prompting many members to leave the order, particularly after Vera recounted the neophyte oath and ritual. The Daily News published her testimony about the ritual word for word, which added to the group's humiliation. Vera explained that she recalled the ritual so clearly because she had insisted in initiating other neophytes. So after she did her ritual, she did this for other people. And the neophyte ritual was thus described. 2 adjoining rooms were required for the ritual. In one room, there was a throne on one end with an altar backed by 5 lamps at the other. One side held seats for the candidates, and the center was another seat flanked by pillar lamps. Theo sat on the throne, and watching through a set of double doors was another throne on which sat Anne. Both wore elaborate outfits, and on the altar was a red cross, a vessel for mixing wine and water, occult signs, and lamps. The candidates were blindfolded, a rope tied around their waist, and they were made to walk around the room 3 times. Vera said she was led into the other room where someone said, "Child of earth, I consecrate thee with water. Child of earth, I consecrate thee with fire." She could hear Madame and Theo moving around but couldn't see what they were doing. Then she knelt down in front of the altar and placed her right hand on the sign of the Red Cross, then grasped Theo's hand, and he said something of a prayer over her. Then she said the oath again. They used both fire and water. When I was consecrated with water, the man made a cross on my forehead with his wet finger. For the fire ceremony, I had to hold my hands over a kind of lamp. There was a sword used. I'm not quite sure what was done with it early in the ceremony, but at the end it was sheathed over my head. After that, I had to partake of bread and salt, and then a rose was passed around. So they give like the whole oath, and it's very long, and I'm not gonna go. We're not gonna do the whole oath because it's very long. But basically, she starts off saying, "I just want to say who like she swears to, if that makes sense."
Yeah.
So I, Vera Croysdale, in the presence of the Lord of the universe, and in the hall of the neophytes of the Order of the GD, in the outer regularly assembled under warrant from the GH chiefs of the Second Order, do of my own free will and accord, hereby and hereon most solemnly pledge myself to keep secret this order, its name of its members, and the proceedings which take place at its meetings from all and every person in the whole world. It goes on and on and on and on. All right.
Quite an oath.
It's much of an oath, and we'll talk about one paragraph of it later. So Vera also said that Theo claimed he was Christ himself, and that sin committed with him would be an act of piety, and that offspring born as their intimacy would be divine. Cult leadership. So she said she was hypnotized by both of the defendants and drugged with a mixture of milk, eggs, whiskey, and some other ingredient every morning, even though the theocratic unity would only consume diet. They were only supposed to eat fruit, nuts, and distilled water, right, and no alcohol was allowed.
So is that like almost like eggnog for breakfast?
It sounds like an eggnog mixture, which I'm like, if you're going to wake me up with like eggnog, I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, maybe not every day. No, so a bunch of people testified during this trial. The boarding house lady of 99 Gower Street, Mrs. Annie Bellman Lewis, testified that the male defendant, who called himself Mr. Adams, came asking for a room for the use of his mother. And then after prepaying for a week, he left. And the next day, the woman defendant came with Rose Adams, who was going by Rose Evelyn. Vera Croysdale came to the house once and was introduced as Anne's adopted daughter. Then Anne tried to sway Mrs. Lewis, the landlady, into joining their cult. The male defendant told her they took laws of poverty, chastity, and obedience, and she said she had to think about it. When Anne testified, she denied ever serving time as a convicted thief, as shown in photographs of Joliet prison and presented by Inspector Kane. So the inspector's like, "Here are pictures of you in prison." Not me. That's not me. So she also brought out books on mesmerism, a letter from a famous spiritualist, and some candles of odd appearance, which might have been used in phallic ceremonies. Anne would swear that Theo was incapable of having sexual intercourse due to his balls being missing. He was examined and found to have only one testicle, but that was said to be perfectly normal, even though it was quite small. When Theo testified, he admitted his real name was Frank Dutton Jackson, and that it had been his privilege since he was 10 years of age to be the adopted son of this most noble lady. But also they were married 3 years ago, but with full knowledge he couldn't perform any marital duties. Anne was committed to a life of celibacy and chastity, and he never claimed to have any divine powers or to be a god. And he did say that he owned some 7,280 acres in the U.S., where he hoped to found a colony called Theocratic Unity, which was to be based upon the principles of Christ's life. He denied the accusations and evaded the issues about placing matrimonial advertisements in the paper. Anne would arrive for proceedings on December 18th in a mauve gown wrapped around her like a toga. It was such an in-demand event that tickets were issued for admission, but the crowd still couldn't be controlled. Daisy gave some more testimony. Anne cross-examined her, and Daisy said that she didn't leave the cult because she didn't have the money to get home. On December 20th, Anne arrived to hear her fate, wearing a voluminous robe of pure white satin, cut low around the neck and with flowing sleeves lined in heliotrope. Over her shoulders was a bright white scarf. in her closing statement for the trial, Anne affirmed her clairvoyant healing abilities, but denied ever claiming to be a medium. Dude, I'm psychic and I can heal things, but I don't talk to the dead. That is too far.
Over the line.
Over the line, sir. She issued an appeal to the jury. I ask you now, as we approach the anniversary of the day on which we celebrate the birth of our Savior, I ask you in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, not ask for mercy or the benefit, to use his greatest gift to man, the human reason, and to remember we do not just ask for mercy or the benefit of your doubt, but for justice. It took the jury less than 10 minutes to decide they were both guilty. Theo was sentenced to 15 years penal servitude and Mrs. Horos to 7 years. Anne was sentenced to 7 years, of which she served 5 at Aylesbury Prison. The Golden Dawn changed their neophyte oath after the trial, where before it ended with, all these points I generally and severally upon this sacred and sublime symbol to swear to observe without evasion, equivocation, or mental reservation of any kind whatsoever, under the no less penalty on the violation of any of them than that of being expelled from this order as a willfully purged wretch, void of all moral worth, and unfit for the society of all upright and true persons, and in addition under the awful penalty of voluntarily submitting myself to a deadly and hostile current of will, set in motion by the chiefs of the order, by which I should fall slain or paralyzed without visible weapon, as if blasted by the lightning flash. They changed that to say, I swear upon this holy symbol to observe all things without evasion, equivocation, or mental reservation, under the penalty of being expelled from this order for my perjury and offense, and submitting myself to the divine guardians of this order, living in the light of their perfect justice. Their journey as upon the winds, they strike where no man strikes, they slay where no man slays. Slay. Yes, they had to tone it down a bit after people, because people, like, even though they're like, there is this order and the order is real, and the inspector testified, like, the order is real, they're true, like, they're good, everyone was still making fun of them because they were just like, you dress up as what and you do what now? So they're, everyone was just, so they're like, let's change some stuff. So Anne left Aylesbury Prison in August 1906 and promptly returned to America. She appeared in some vaudeville and burlesque shows, but that failed to impress. She married again, but ended back in Joliet Penitentiary for another 2 years. She vanished after 1909 after appearing in New Orleans as the Baroness Rosenthal one last time. By 1915, Jackson, who was now leading the Philadelphian Order of the Crystal Circle, was accused of bigamy for marrying and swindling a 70-year-old woman in Buffalo. And that is the story of the fake Golden Dawn and Anne d'Estabar.
Wild.
Thank you guys for joining more lore. We never know how to end this, besides saying wild.
It was a good one. I enjoyed that. All right. Yay. See y'all next week.